Hey everyone, and welcome to Death By, where contestants will earn reps for their arguments for a chance to stand on top of the podium pedestal. I'm your host, Lauren Kalil. Whoever I decide has the best argument through the final round will earn 30 seconds to talk about a topic of their choosing. On today's episode, we have two-time Affiliate Cup champion and seminar staff head trainer, James Hobart. Affiliate owner and CrossFit analyst, Chase Ingram with Get With The Programming. And CrossFit Games team athlete, Tim Polson with Team CrossFit East Nashville Proven. Let's play Death By. Over the last few years, there has been a lot of hype around training camps, and for good reason. You put a high-level athlete in an environment with other high-level athletes, with elite coaches, and it should be a recipe for success. But looking at the elite men and women's leaderboards from this year's games, 5 of the 6 athletes on the podium are not from a training camp. So does an athlete's programming and environment dictate who ultimately wins the CrossFit Games? And if so, by how much? We will start this round with Chase Ingram.
All right. Simple answer is the same way I look at programming in an affiliate or other entities around the space. And the answer is there a best program out there? Unequivocally, no. There's not a best program out there. However, you can have bad programs. But if your training camp isn't looking at content and podcasts from Dave Castro and Adrian Bosman, you're making a mistake. If you're not a historian of the sport, you're making a mistake. If you are not watching trends from open, quarterfinals, semis, regionals over the last 16 to 17 years, you are making a mistake. If you're not a historian of our training methodology all the way back to 2001 to now, you're making a mistake. So if you do not have that inside your training camp, I say you're doing something wrong. But if everybody is working together and they're focused on all of these things that can trend in the right direction of programming, then I would say you're doing something right.
Ooh, 3 points for Chase on that. James, what do you think? I think we could call you a historian for sure.
I mean, I actually really disagree with Chase here. I think there is a best program for an individual, 100%. And I think you see some of the athletes who really excel are getting attention from a lot of coaches or a single coach just directly to them. My fear of the training camp approach is that you have maybe 1 or 2 resources spread out across a lot of athletes, or you have a case where maybe 1 or 2 athletes in the stable are getting a lot of attention and the rest in that athlete camp are not getting a lot of attention. So I do think there is a best programming for individuals to target their specific weaknesses. And if you look at the Fronings and the Matt Frasers, they really stumbled on cocktails that worked exceedingly well for them in terms of getting fitter and fitter and fitter, right? They found the right recipe. So I think those pieces matter there. And also look at all the athletes who are pulling in those specialty coaches to start attacking weaknesses. To Chase's credit, totally agree on the history piece. You have to be paying attention to that kind of stuff because it's the best thing you can see on what's coming next. But you do need some specificity for a program that works best for you. And I think we saw that play out this year.
4 points for James. Okay, Tim, you've kind of fallen in both camps. You're on a CrossFit team with Proven, but you still follow your own programming. What are your thoughts on this one?
I think that the most important thing, so yes, there's an answer, but a lot of the programs would serve most athletes well. I think James hit the nail on the head as far as individuality goes, having something that's tailored to you. And I would say an athlete's coach probably determines who wins the CrossFit Games more than anything, because if they have a great relationship with their athlete, that obviously assumes that, one, they know them inside and out. So that program is tailored to them. They're bringing in specialty coaches when needed. They're doing all of kind of the grunt work, but more importantly, they have a great relationship with their athlete and can read them throughout the season. Do they need more volume, less volume? Are they under recovering, over recovering? How are they actually performing on a day in and day out basis? So, and I would say you could get that in a training camp, but it's probably harder to do so unless those coaches are very very in tune with the individual athletes. And I think you see a lot of the people on the podium this year train with one coach and train alone. Vellner's a great example. He has a great relationship with his coach, Michelle, but he trains by himself pretty much all the time and is phenomenally successful. So I think the coach dictates success more so than the program itself.
3 points for Tim. So follow-up question. If we're looking at training camps specifically, could it be kind of that double-edged sword if camps are taking on several high-level athletes that are all gunning for the same end result?
I mean, yeah, I would say so. You're going to be spread around. it kind of depends on the athlete though. Like for some athletes, they like being in a very competitive environment on a day-to-day basis. But I also, personally speaking, think that you can lose a lot in that kind of journey because you may be just, not training certain, stimulus or certain, thresholds because you're just racing all the time. So I think it can kind of go both ways in a lot of respects with execution of workouts and also with just maybe getting too hyperly competitive that you could have a tendency to not be focused enough on your own kind of execution.
Topic number 2, kind of speaking of champions in the space and high level athletes, former 2-time champion Justin Medeiros, he finished 13th overall at the games this year, something that I don't think any of us really could have expected. He spoke recently on his YouTube channel about having similar nerves that he did during his rookie year and how he struggled to recover after the bike event. But when it comes to the potential of reclaiming his title next year, is it possible? And if so, how? Or is the field just too competitive now on the men's side? James, we will let you kick off this round.
Man, I'm a big fan of Justin, so I'm going to say that the field is not too competitive for him to get back on top of the podium and be a contender there. But I do think it's a really hard thing to do. I don't know if we've seen it happen where somebody has been a champ, not been a champ for a while, and then been a champ again. But correct me if I'm wrong on that one. The thing I thought was more interesting is that Justin seemed to struggle with single modality events. And if you look at 2021 and 2022, there were a lot more mixed modality events and less single modality events. And while he didn't have any really event wins, or he might only had a couple, he performed really well at all of that CrossFit stuff. And this year it seemed like the Olympic lift, the inverted medley, the bike, the 5K run is where he seemed to struggle. So in that case, I imagine he'll go back and attack those weaknesses. And if anyone can do it, a champ can. But if that kind of programming continues to show up, he might have some issues.
2 points
so
for
proud
Jane.
of you, James. That was great.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
All right, Chase, we'll let you add on to that, I suppose.
So for Justin, I think one of the things that we set him up for failure early on is that after he won his first in 2021, we were heralding him as is he going to be the next Matt or the next Rich or the next male dominant athlete in the sport? And then when he won back-to-back, it was like, this is it. This is the next guy. And that's a lot of pressure to put on anyone, even if you've won the games 2 times in a row. But I think the thing about Justin is that I'm actually more worried about his response to losing the CrossFit Games this year with that video that he did afterwards. Like, I have never seen anyone do that before. Like, anyone, period, let alone someone who won the games twice. That is worrying to me. It's not so much about the field catching up to Justin, but can Justin sustain what champions need is that unshakable faith in themselves to be a champion in the sport. And after I saw that video from Justin, that made me question whether he will repeat as a champion.
3 points for Chase. Tim, what are your thoughts?
I think, can Justin do it? Probably yes. It's definitely in the realm of possibility, but I think as far as going to, is the field too competitive? It's not too competitive that Justin can't win. It's that it's so competitive that he needs a flawless weekend. And I think that's more and that's true on both male and female side now, with Tia potentially returning next year, with Roman being, theoretically fully healthy, with Ricky coming back. You just have these men who are on a serious upward trajectory that are very dangerous. And then you've got the old war dog, Pat Vellner kind of hanging around there. So I don't think it's not too competitive, but I think, once you kind of have a misstep like that, nobody thinks you're immortal anymore. So there's kind of this, there's a lot of blood in the water. And if Justin uses that to his advantage and he can use it as fuel to come back even stronger next year, it could be just as good for him as it is for everybody else. But I think more so the other athletes see the opening and they're chomping at the bit.
4 points for Tim. I want to kind of go back to what Chase was talking about. When you're looking at athletes like Jeffrey Adler, who now have such faith in himself and he knows when he is going to win an event. And I mean, he should go to the casino and start gambling if he's that confident when he knows what the result is going to be. And even you look at Roman, who struggled with adversity of the injury and just kept grinding through. And I bring up those 2 athletes because then you do look at somebody like Justin putting out a video where he was so raw and authentic, which as a consumer, I appreciate, but how much of that will transition into whether somebody can become a champion again or not?
So I have to separate the human that is Justin and the athlete that is Justin, right? You want to feel for the guy. He is so fun. He is a great person, top to bottom. Every conversation you've ever had with him, and it's only reflected by the greatness of his family. And I'll say that for Justin as the human being. But as the athlete, you cannot have that. Not say cannot. When you put those things out there, it's not that other people hear it, it's that you hear yourself say it. I say that these things went wrong. I say that I had that lack of confidence. I'm not saying you shouldn't have those things on a personal reflection so you can change those things, but that outward talk becomes the narrative that you speak for yourself from now on, not just the athletes like Tim was saying, it was like blood in the water, right? And so I think confidence is such a vital part of being a champion, not just being great athletes, right? We all have self-confidence issues no matter what we do, but a returning back-to-back champion. And I think we discredit the incredible feats that the Riches and the Matts and the Tias did because we thought it came maybe so easy for Justin. And let's just take a look back and just enjoy the thing that we thought was annoying at the time. The greatness that was these athletes while they were doing it.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's a really great point because didn't Tia just put out a social media post that was basically like, I can't wait to come back and tear everybody's arms and heads off. Like it was essentially something to that beat.
Yeah, I mean, seeing her at the games, like she was in the broadcast booth with a baby at the wall broadcasting, and she was like, it was like watching a horse in the stalls for like she was just like back, and I was like, oh my gosh, she cannot wait to get back out there.
Yeah.
I mean, getting the chance to spend time with Tia this year, that is very much a vibe. And like talking a little bit about like just like kind of parenthood and stuff like that with her was actually a lot of fun because like, I mean, personally, I felt just like kind of a renewed invigoration for life since having a son, and it just like changes the way you look at things, the way you prioritize things. And like, we had some really good conversations about it. Like Willow is like an impetus for like, I mean, she's going to be scary. Like she was already scary and now she's like further fired up and motivated by like wanting to show something to her daughter. So like, good luck.
That's cool.
So for other athletes on, I guess both the men and women's side is what we need to see a almost reoccurring champion, that blood in the water mentality. And even if you're feeling self-doubt, like you just work through it.
I mean, look at what Laura did. I mean, who has more doubts about if this thing comes up and everything, that the whole narrative with her, but she has always said, I am going to the CrossFit Games not to beat one person. I'm going to the CrossFit Games to beat everyone. And she showed that. And her confidence only grew in the conversations she was having with post-interviews during semifinals, and then every interview she had at the CrossFit Games. She wasn't in the leader jersey that often over the weekend, but anytime you talked to her, it was no doubt in her mind that that is what she was there to do, and that is what she was going to do while she was there. So that is a part of it. And like I said, having some self-doubt in there is like, she doesn't talk about the things that, we talk about as far as like what could trip her up. She just talks about what her goal is, and that was to win the CrossFit Games.
I like it. We'll have to see. All right. So now moving on to topic number 3. Speaking of what we'll have to wait and see, it was the final year of the CrossFit Games in Madison. We're still waiting to see where it will be in 2024. But if each of you had all the power in the world right now to pick where you want to see the CrossFit Games headed to, where would it be and why? We will let Tim, as a competitor himself, tell us, where do you want to see the games? Where do you want to compete if you want to do another year?
I would honestly just like to see it go north and not south. I think like using a different style of kind of terrain as a measuring stick for the games would be really fun. Not necessarily like going to a mountaintop in, Canada or something like that. So I don't have a specific location in mind, but I guess like maybe getting into somewhere that is like a little bit more hilly, that has some mountains to run, things like that. Just something that could throw some other unique testing elements kind of into the equation, rather than like, it seems like for the last decade, we've just tested, can you handle the heat? So I think like getting away from that a little bit, and maybe like, not that we need to go throw them in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, way up north or something like that. But I think just like moving it to a venue where you would have really cool outside resources, to do some events that are, again, out of the box, but still kind of like CrossFit relevant. So, I mean, like plenty of areas in Canada, areas in Northern Europe, things like that. I would love to see it. So no specific place for me. Like I said, more about just like a different environment where we could have some different kind of testing modalities.
If that happened, would you compete again?
If they send us to the mountains, you would be hard pressed to not see me go have fun in the mountains.
Oh, okay. All right. Somebody put a good word in to get Timmy back. 2 points for Tim. James, where would you like to see the CrossFit Games headed to?
Oh man, well, I mean Antarctica. That's about as south as you can go, but it doesn't have to do with the heat. No, I mean personally, I would love to see it go somewhere like Colorado. I think the ability to play with just the different geographical features there, I think would be amazing. I like the centralized location, but I was taking a look at the affiliate map on CrossFit.com, and I was trying to see like where are affiliates like centralized, especially internationally. I think we're probably a couple of years out before we have like a games level event internationally, if not the games. But man, there's such a pocket of affiliates, Northern Italy, Madrid, Spain. And I think a lot of people could get there without having to fly, which would just make that event absolutely spectacular. And I think it would just show a certain level of growth in the sport that we just all would love to see. And it would be able to show a different side of the community that me personally really got to enjoy when I was traveling for seminar staff. So those are all selfish choices for sure. But those are the places I'd really like to see.
Well, looking at the affiliate map too, I think that helps. We'll give you 4 points for that one, James. Chase, I know you've thought long and hard about this. I know that you want your voice to be heard. So tell us, where would you like to see the CrossFit Games?
So I'm going to switch to where and what I think that location would need to have a successful place for the CrossFit Games. And you want to think big city, small town. Carson, great. Tennis stadium, all that was awesome, the electric, but we just got lost in the shuffle that was basically LA. Madison, they did everything short of the CrossFit Games aside from renaming Madison the CrossFit Games, right? But it was just too hard to get into. I mean, it was hard to get in there locally, let alone internationally. And then hotel accommodation. So what you want to see is a big city, small town vibe, meaning it is a city that can accommodate one of the largest spectacles that we have in sport, especially, I mean, obviously our sport, but you have the hotel accommodations there. You have restaurants that can supply that. You have an international airport where everyone around the world can basically direct fly in there. But on top of that, close to what James was talking about is that you got to think about the volunteers that put on this event. It also has to be easy for those to even get the event off the ground as well. So I'm looking at all of these things on top of things like weather, accommodations, and then what venue is it going to be? Is it going to be an old venue or a new venue? I think there's a lot of options around the U.S. right now where updating that venue is another perk to where the CrossFit Games could potentially go.
Okay, so that was a lot of good setup, but where does that bring you?
So when I think I'll put a stamp right there in the central of the United States. I'll just say it right there. It's like I don't want something too high elevated because that will deter athletes' performances in the same way that weather could do the same thing, as Tim was talking about, like basically the heat games. And not necessarily wrong when he was talking about that, but I just want something that where we are does not affect how the competition unfolds. I don't want something outside the realm of fitness to decide who the winner is going to be at the CrossFit Games. So pick the most, about as gray as my answer could be, pick whatever city that is. How about that?
Okay, I'm going to give you
fitness. Sorry.
No. Go ahead, James.
I know he's one.
Isn't fitness all about confronting, whatever physiological obstacle you have in front of you, be it weather or a sandbag or,
I think weather and a sandbag are two very different spectrums of
fair
things
point.
That we can change. There's a reason why we put temperature and location at the very end of the programming.
It's true.
It would be cool. I mean, altitude, like, not to call it the altitude games, but like it would be, like there's certain like you see, like right now, the Leadville 100 is like really like it's an event that's going on right now. People are all fired up about it because of the challenge of the environment. And obviously, like we're not going out there to see if people can survive for 100 miles through terrain. But like, even if the games only went there for a year or two or three, like going to a high altitude environment could be, I don't know, it could be like a cool chapter in the game's history books. Like it's a known fact that you're going to compete at elevation. It's going to be an added element of the test. Obviously, the program would have to take that into consideration, acclimatization, like all that stuff. But I don't know. It could be kind of cool. Like, again, Denver, like, could do it.
And the CrossFit Games after party.
Yeah.
Oh,
My place.
yes.
Let's go. I told you this is totally selfish. So.
That's okay. That's okay. I'm gonna give Chase 1 point. You teed us up very nicely. I liked all of the meat and potatoes, but truthfully, you kind of just stayed like
There.
I'm not. You didn't give an answer, but that's okay. And that means, guess what, James? I think this is your second time winning the show.
Hey.
This might be like second or third. Just saying.
Nice.
Third. I'll have to
I'm
go
not
fact
counting.
check myself. Don't worry, Chase is counting how many times he's won.
It's not 4. But.
All right, James, podium pedestal, any topic of your choosing, you may begin.
I have a really simple one. I'm just not fit enough anymore to make it to the games, and I know everybody's been games focused on the games, but I've been spending a little time out here since I moved out to Colorado, just visiting some local affiliates and going to local competitions, weekend comps, and I've absolutely loved it. I think coming out of the games, like I kind of dreaded it for years, and I was like, oh, I'll never go do something like that. But it has just been an amazing time to just go see what the community of affiliates are up to, and just how just alive and well the competitive sport of CrossFit is outside of the games. I think you always hear this chatter at the fringes of people saying things like, oh, the sport has no future. And it's like, I roll into these competitions and just even seeing how fit people are at that level. And some of them aren't even looking to go to semifinals or things like that. There's just no doubt in me that those things, and I know that nothing is perfect, but those things are still headed in the right direction. It's just always wonderful to be inside of the affiliate community and just see how they're still supporting that level of competition. So my rant would be get out and go visit a local competition, participate if you're into that. They're absolutely awesome. So
I was actually at the Asbury Park Summer Games this past weekend in New Jersey, and man, that thing is coming back and it's ready. There were so many people there and the energy. That's really what we love, right, James?
it's like a little festival weekend. Yeah, it's super fun. So I'm a fan now.
I love it. Plenty of off-season events. We're just getting started. I think the Rogue Invitational qualifiers were just posted, and the off-season is underway. Tim's like, no. Are you going to do them?
No, I saw those workouts. I'm good, man.
Yeah.
I heard they're bad.
They're
bad hard.
They're pretty gnarly looking.
Like the way it is.
Yeah, those workouts are some doozies for sure. Like they don't pull punches on their qualifiers. Like, God, some really, yeah. I mean, like they're good workouts, but damn, they're beats.
You had me at doozy, so.
Well, James, Chase, Tim, thank you guys so much for stopping by for another episode of Death By, and thank you for everybody who is watching. Make sure you guys stay tuned with us on YouTube and Instagram. We will be posting our full schedule of content so that you know what to expect. But until then, we'll see you next time.